The train arrived at exactly 3:17 a.m. There was no announcement, no whistle, no warning at all. Just the sudden emergence of steel and shadow from the fog, its headlights slicing briefly through the darkness before coming to rest at a platform that looked as though it hadn't been used in decades. You were the only passenger who stepped off. The moment your boots touched the platform, the cold set in. Not the sharp kind, but a damp, clinging chill that seemed to seep through fabric and bone alike. Fog wrapped around your legs like grasping fingers, thick enough that the edges of the station vanished only a few steps away. When the train doors closed behind you, there was no hiss of air, no rumble of departure. The train was simply gone. You stood there for a long moment, listening. No insects, no wind, not even the distant hum of electricity. Only silence, broken by a sound that made your stomach tighten. Tick. It came from inside the station. The building itself loomed ahead, a hunched structure of stone and rusted iron. A single lamp above the entrance flickered weakly, casting shadows that didn't quite behave the way shadows should. As you stepped closer, the ticking grew louder, steady, deliberate, patient. Inside, the station smelled of dust and old paper. Benches lined the walls, their wood cracked with age, yet strangely free of cobwebs. The lights overhead buzzed softly, flickering just enough to keep your nerves on edge. And there, mounted above the ticket counter, was the clock. It had no hands, no hour, no minute, just a bare, cracked face. And yet it ticked, tick, tick. Each sound echoed unnaturally, as though the station were hollow inside. You don't remember deciding to move, but your feet carried you forward anyway. On the counter lay a ledger, thick, heavy, its leather cover worn smooth by time. When you opened it, the pages whispered softly, as if relieved to be touched again. Names filled every line. Hundreds of them. Thousands, perhaps. You recognized none at first, but then you noticed something that made your breath catch. The handwriting. It was yours. Every loop, every slant, every familiar hesitation of the pen. Your pulse quickened as your eyes traced the dates written beside each name. They were all in the future. Days, months, years ahead. And at the very bottom of the final page was your name, only partially written. A sound behind you made you spin around. Footsteps, slow, measured, unhurried. A figure emerged from the fog, drifting through the open station doors. Then another, and another. Men and women of all ages, dressed plainly, their faces pale but calm. They smiled as they approached, not warmly, but knowingly, like old friends greeting you after a long absence. "Welcome," one of them said softly. "You're safe here," said another. Something in their voices felt rehearsed, as though they had spoken those words many times before. You asked where you were. They exchanged glances, and a few of them chuckled gently. "Greyhaven," they said together. The name settled uneasily in your mind. You were certain you had never heard it before, yet it felt familiar, like a word remembered from a dream. They led you out into the streets. Greyhaven was quiet, too quiet. The buildings leaned at odd angles, as if they had shifted when no one was looking. Streetlights glowed dimly through the fog, illuminating roads that seemed to stretch and shrink as you walked. Every clock you passed, on walls, in windows, mounted on poles, was frozen at a different time. All except the one in the station. Tick. You noticed that whenever the sound carried through the streets, the residents flinched. Only slightly, barely enough to notice. But they all reacted. You asked them about it. They smiled again. It keeps us on schedule. As the night wore on, the town began to feel wrong in ways you couldn't quite explain. Alleyways led back to streets you'd already walked. Doors marked exit, opened to reveal the station platform. No matter where you went, the fog seemed to guide you gently, but firmly, back toward the clock. Whispers began soon after. At first, you thought it was the wind, but the air was still. The voices came from the walls, the ground, the very fog itself. They spoke of things only you should know, childhood memories, half-forgotten regrets, moments you were certain had never happened. yet felt undeniably real. You saw your reflection in a shop window and froze. The person staring back was you, but older, worn, eyes heavy with something that looked like acceptance. When you turned around, the reflection remained, watching you for a moment longer before fading back into darkness. Panic clawed at your chest. You ran. The station rose ahead of you once more, inevitable as gravity. Inside, the ledger lay open on the counter. A pen rested beside it, ink glistening wetly at the tip. Your name had advanced further down the line, letter by letter, writing itself. Tick, tick. The residents gathered behind you in silence. No one touched you. No one stopped you. They simply watched, their calm expressions tinged now with something close to pity. You demanded answers. One of them stepped forward. Everyone arrives eventually, they said. Some by train, some by memory, some by guilt. What happens when the name is finished? You asked. The station clock ticked louder. Then, they replied gently, you stay. The train reappeared outside without warning, doors yawning open to reveal a darkness deeper than night. For a moment, a terrible, fragile moment, you wondered if this was your escape, or if it was simply another arrival. The clock ticked again, and again. You looked at the ledger, at your name, at the blank space that remained. The fog pressed in from all sides, patient and unyielding. Somewhere, far away or impossibly close, a train waited for its next passenger. And Greyhaven, unseen by any map, held its breath. Tick,